I'm the Director of Psychology and Psychotherapy for SLAM, and I'd really like to welcome you to these broadcasts, which are on the theme of psychological resilience building. We've had a couple of really fantastic projects already profiled in this series, and we've got another wonderful one today from East London, a gardening project for women experiencing chronic pain. And I want to explain a little bit about why we are profiling this amazing work and encourage you to take part in the questions and answers in the function to the side. So, as you know, most of the work of preventing the development of mental health problems and also supporting people who have mental health problems takes place outside of secondary care. And we need to think about some of the services, the community groups, and particularly people with lived experience who are active in this work, and how we can support them in the work that they do. I think what binds them and all the wonderful community groups and third sector providers, and as well as statutory services like ourselves, what binds us all together is this burning ambition to address health and social care inequalities. And I think that's something that this project will make very obvious to you, because of course the coronavirus pandemic hasn't impacted everybody equally, and it has highlighted for most of us the need to really lean into addressing these problems at pace. So what I'd really like from you, the audience, is to pose some difficult questions to us, to help us to think through how we can speed up the integration of health and social care with community, charitable and voluntary sector groups like this. So the sorts of questions I think you might want to ask are, how do we ensure that interventions like this, that people want and need, and which communities can provide, are properly funded and supported? How can we make sure that there's research to evaluate the effectiveness of the interventions that people say that they want? And how can we benefit from the lived experience of people in our communities? So if you would post those questions, that'd be absolutely fantastic. Now I'm going to pass over to the speakers, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves briefly first, and then I'll start with the first question. So Sharon, could you introduce yourself first?
Yes, hi, I'm Sharon Hare, clinical psychologist working in the community health service in Tower Hamlets.
Thanks. Alea? Alea? Maybe Alea's having some difficulties. Salima, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Celine Mccarten. I suffer from long-term chronic pain and I'm a service user. I attend the gardening project every week.
Super. And Alea, are you back with us?
I think we need to ask Alea to turn her camera on if possible.
Alea, can you turn your camera and sound on? Okay, well, we'll introduce Alea shortly. I'd like to start by asking you, Sharon, if you could just describe the background to the project, tell us a little bit about the context of it and how it prevents unnecessary access. Yes, hi Alea. Do you want to just introduce yourself?
Sorry, everybody. So my name's Alea.
You're there, carry on, it's fine. We seem to be having some technical difficulties. Do you want to try again, Alea?
Hi, everybody. I'm not sure whether you can all see me, but hopefully you can all hear me. Yes. My name is Alea. I'm a community care navigator, and I work within a multidisciplinary team for the London Foundation Trust.
Thanks, Alea. So Sharon, if you could tell us a bit about the project and how it helps to prevent mental health problems. Sorry, how it helps to prevent access to secondary health care, because I know it's about healthcare and not about mental health.
Yes, sure. So yeah, I'm working in the same team as Alea, and we are a community primary care predominantly physical health service. So our colleagues are district nursing, physio and occupational therapy for rehab, mostly home-based, care navigation and peer support. The Gardening for Health project began last year, began as an 8-week group for Bengali women, referred to my service for physiotherapy, primarily to improve mobility. The landscape within which the women were referred to our service was quite a complex one. Often, not only was there experiences of chronic pain, but there are often other long-term conditions, as well as experiences of depression and often anxiety. So there was a sort of complex interplay between the physical and the emotional. So the Gardening for Health project is run weekly. We host it at Spitalfield City Farm, which if any of you get the chance to go, it's an absolutely amazing space within the heart of Tower Hamlet, a safe and trusted space by the community. And our work is in collaboration with them, but also the Coriander Club, which was founded about 20 years ago by a wonderful woman called Lutfan Hussain for Bengali women and the community. The group, it's a gardening group, so we do gardening stuff. We plant, we weed, we water, we harvest, and at the end we cook from the produce that we've grown. Within that, we have weaved in an integrated therapies approach to this model, which incorporates physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and psychology principles. Yeah, so that's the group in that form. Would you like me to say a little bit about how the group is working at the moment?
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, so we had plans to run the group again this summer to extend it to a 12-week programme. However, with the pandemic and the lockdown, we obviously weren't unable to continue it in its original form at Spitalfield City Farm, but we regrouped quite quickly, and we are a couple of colleagues are hosting from Spitalfield City Farm, from the raised bed, and we run the group virtually, and we all participate in growing something at home. And I really hope Salima will be able to share a little bit more about what we've been growing, what we've been doing within the current group. So yeah, it's continuing, but virtually.
So maybe we could start with you, Alea. Could you tell us a little bit about what it's like to work in the project, what your daily work looks like, and maybe you could illustrate an example of how you believe you've helped to keep people from having to access maybe secondary health care?
So in my role as a care navigator, initially when I see patients, it's a holistic assessment that we carry out that covers their kind of health, social, mental health care needs. And what's for me, I'm a Bangladeshi woman myself. I mean, I suffer with pain. I've lived in Tower Hamlets all my life, so you know, I have a kind of a connection. I have some degree of sort of empathy towards the women that kind of join the group, who are participating. But before joining the Gardening for Health group, when I was carrying out my initial assessments and women were talking about pain and mobility issues, my normal kind of usual stance would be to speak to the GP about pain management, about speaking to the physios and OTs, about kind of rehabilitation and equipment. But since I joined the Gardening for Health project, I've kind of got a bit more a personal insight, and I find that when I'm actually doing these assessments on patients, other than kind of speaking to the GPs or speaking to physios and OTs, I speak to patients about other ways of them kind of managing pain, and look at kind of activities that they're interested in or maybe want to do. So for example, when I go and see these women, I do talk about gardening, especially with Bangladeshi women, who most of them come from Bangladesh to the UK, so they've lived in villages where they've, you know, been used to planting, and they kind of lived in rural areas. So we've been able to have the discussion around kind of gardening. And in Tower Hamlets, most of us aren't fortunate to have big gardens. So we do kind of think about planting in pots in a kind of balcony gardening and stuff. So there was one example that I can give. A couple of weeks ago, I went to see an elderly lady with her daughter, and the conversation that we had was, I mean, she's a really lovely garden, and she was growing all the traditional Bangladeshi vegetables like the coriander, and the daughter was saying how during the lockdown period, her mum had kind of gone into a bit of a mental decline in terms of her mood. And mum and daughter talked about kind of, you've got this space, why don't you do gardening? So the daughter kind of got her started on, got a kit, startup kit, and they got started on the gardening. So the mum, the patient, she's growing all these lovely quadrillas, and her garden has almost become like her baby. So she's really kind of enjoying her time there. Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. Alison?
I said thanks very much. Sorry, I appear to have been on mute. So, Salima, could you tell us a little bit about your experience of the project and what you got out of it?
Yes, I found the group very motivating. It's made me really happy. It distracts me from my pain. So when I mean distract, because there's something very nice to do is with nature, and you're growing plants and you're seeing its progress every week. It also and then to have a harvest at the end of it. Also, it's sort of motivating, not only uplifted my mood, I find that I've got a reason to be more mobile. So for example, going watering my plant, just looking at it, making me feel happy, or waking up to know that there's a plant that I've got to look after. So what I found is it's just completely distracted me from my long-term chronic pain. It's there, even when I'm planting, it's there. But instead of me feeling down and upset and thinking about my pain or feeling sorry for myself, I actually feel that there's something to look forward to. So I can push the pain at the back of my head with some painkillers, but then I've got a quality of life to look forward to. So even if it means going to my plant, it's like a little baby. So you're sort of seeing it grow, watering it. And I found that from this uplifted mood and the motivation, I've actually built a little garden in my balcony, and I've got various plants now, from flowers to lots of plants, even a bottle gourd. I took the challenge of putting up a bottle gourd in my little balcony, and I'm just so proud of it.
What's a bottle gourd?
So it's amongst the Bangladeshi community. It's our pride, it's our love, and we love this vegetable. It's a green long vegetable that we can have with meat or fish, and it's like a must in our Bengali community to have it. And if we don't have our own garden, we make sure we get it from the family members who have. So
they're quite special to be able to grow one then.
It is, especially in a flat. So I've took up this challenge. So I started the gardening project last year. So I'm absolutely new to it. I didn't know about gardening, but the impact of that gardening project to this year now, the second year running, I've now got a bottle gourd plant on my balcony. So it's had a huge impact, which I didn't really realize until now. Now that I'm talking about it, now that I'm back with the gardening project, I've realized the influence, the positive influence and impact it has on me. And I've realized it's actually spread in my family. So my husband's now, who's my carer as well. So he goes through a lot of the stress of seeing me in pain, and then having to take up some of the duties that I was once upon a time doing with my children. So it's actually relieved some stress as well. So with me, he's actually doing the gardening, and he's very happy as well. So it's distracted him from the stress of my long-term chronic pain that it has.
So it's helped the whole family.
It has, and I find I'm really happy. It's with nature as well. This particular project is with nature, just to touch the soil, just to get the plant growing and harvest. It's such a peaceful activity. It's not stressful in any way.
So we've got a question from the audience here, which says, what were the criteria for you getting access to this service? Was it easy for you to get to be part of this gardening project? What helped you to sort of want to take part? What was it about this project that made you want to join this and not say something else?
That's a good question. I got this. I was invited by the physiotherapists and the care navigators. For me, first of all, they are people that I know that will understand my mobility issue, as well as the fact that they recognize that there's a mental issue. So pain actually makes your mood down. And then it's so hard to be mobile and to be active. So I recognized that there was a group out there who already knows some part of the issue that we're going through. Then I also recognized that the group had invited a lot of women like myself who suffers long-term chronic pain. So my immediate reaction was that I'll be in a safe group. I will be with people who understand what I'm going through. So there was a safety network I recognized first. Then the project was to do with nature. When you're in, and at the time when I was invited, I was in a lot of pain. All I wanted was peace, to be surrounded by nature. I didn't want anything too loud, too noisy. Just something to do with nature, me, peace, and a safe group. So
it sounds like it was relatively easy for you to access it.
Yes.
You were really attracted to the fact it wasn't a clinical setting. It had this lovely nature environment. It was connected to your life, and but also you were surrounded by women like you with similar experiences to you. And I'm just wondering, Salima, can you tell us anything about what you think the role of people like you could be in a project like this going forward in terms of running it? The experience that you have, the experience that the other women have. Do you think you've got something that could help benefit health services like this in the future in possibly even a paid capacity?
Yes, I definitely think so, because obviously within the community of women we suffer a lot of not just physical pain, emotional pain as well. Most of us are mothers, we've got so much more responsibilities, and having a project like this, it sort of helped us to escape away from the pain and other responsibilities, and it sort of, I feel it sort of empowers us to do something for ourselves, makes us happy, and then we take this happy mood back to our family, and it's just a natural reaction, and the family's happy, and we're all getting involved in an activity that we can do as a family. I've grown sunflowers with my little girl. We planted the seed, and so they see that happy impact from me, and they can see that I'm not actually lying down in pain and moaning about pain. I'm actually doing something active, which I can get the family involved. So I think for the community, for the women to be involved, it's just nice that we can understand one another. We can escape from our problem for a moment, do something productive, positive, take it back home.
It seems to me that you have experiences that it would be hard for me to fake, for example. It seems to me that your understanding of the experience that you've been through adds something to the project, and I'm just wondering if there are any other people with sort of lived experience of chronic pain who are part of the project. It's a question for anybody. Do you have a peer supporter model at all, or is that not something you've developed? Sharon.
We, as part of the development for the project, that is something that we would absolutely love to happen. For the next stages of the project, we be incorporating the peer support worker role. Within ELF, we do have a good community of peer support workers. and in our particular directorate, we're hoping to increase that. But what I would like to add is that the way in which we hoped and framed this group from the beginning, within the partnership with the City Farm and the Coriander Club, was within a co-production spirit. So whilst we don't have peer support workers within the group, our peers are the women who come to the group, and we see them as our advisors. So, you know, as a psychologist, I've got lots of ideas, I've got lots of theories and evidence base for, you know, how we might be able to support low mood, anxiety, pain. But actually, what's been really powerful is to, you know, propose these to the group and see what's meaningful for Salima and for the other women. So we've adopted elements of the community psychology model within the group. Does that answer the question? Sorry,
it's quite difficult to hear you, Sharon. It's also difficult to hear me when I'm on mute, I should think. But so if you could speak clearly, that will help. But you are very clear, so don't worry. I wanted to ask the question about, you know, why should we have a project like this? How does it? What I want to ask a kind of searching question around costs, really. You know, is this a cost-effective way of intervening? Is it evidence-based? Is there good evidence that it works, or is it just something that sounds nice? No, now we really can't hear you. Is that a question you could answer, Alea? I think we're struggling to hear Sharon now. So I'd ask her about... Hello? Can you hear me?
Sorry.
So we're struggling to hear Sharon. Oh, she's moved to a different setting.
To the portal. Is that better?
Yeah, that is better. Can you tell us a little bit about the costs and benefits of this project and the evidence base behind it? Because it's, you know, on the one hand, it sounds like a wonderful experience and just a fantastic project. But, you know, how does it really help with health problems? How does it help us address the huge challenges we have in health of managing costs and improving service user experience and value for money? How does it sit within that frame?
Well, my first response is I think, yes, we kind of have the evidence base and we have the outcome measures as well. So in terms of evidence base, we know that when projects are have a community connection, you know, that they become more meaningful and more sustainable. In terms of all the evidence base for gardening, it's there. We hear it more and more, especially in lockdown. In terms of cost savings, this project, we had originally run it for 8 weeks and then we proposed to run it further for 12 weeks. And as part of that, we were asked to do a cost analysis. And what we found was that for running the group with 10 women, we were able to reduce the cost by around 35%. And actually alongside the cost saving, we have huge positive outcomes from the experiences of the women who attend. So right from the beginning, the women, and Salima, you can back me up on this, you know, right from the start, we were hearing different stories from women, from usually being described as, you know, women who experience chronic pain and who were unable to access services because of the pain. Here we had women attending, making their own way to the farm, and versus the treatment that we would usually, the intervention that we would usually propose, which was a home-based rehab program. So one of the biggest outcomes was, you know, we put the work in, we set it up, we set the group up, and women came, and they came every week. And actually the narratives, the way in which we were hearing women talk about themselves and describe themselves wasn't within a pain framework. As Selena so beautifully put, it's not that the pain is gone. You know, this group hasn't cured the pain, but actually there's a way of living with the pain which isn't a dominant story. So the stories that we...
Well, I just wanted to interrupt there just to ask the question, because it's quite a tricky one, isn't it? You say there's been substantial cost savings, but is there any added value to having, you know, somebody with your level of skills and qualification involved in a project like this? I mean, you're a relatively expensive resource, if you don't mind me saying, you know, surely a gardening project could just exist without your support. What do you think? Do you think that this is a way in which are you suggesting maybe that this is a way in which secondary care services might be redesigned, or are you to sort of support and fund these sorts of projects, or are you thinking that this isn't about people like you being involved at all?
I think that as a psychologist, and being part of the service, I was always involved with seeing women who presented with chronic pain. So the psychologist role was always there, but often it was within a context of the rehab programme, so joint visits or individual sessions to increase, reduce anxiety and increase engagement. I think as a psychologist, we bring a lot of skills to setting up these sorts of projects, and I suppose my advice to other psychologists in their own teams would be it may not be that it's a gardening for health project that you need. You know, it may be another culturally, you know, sensitive and appropriate model and project that you require. But I think as a psychologist, we are really good at listening and thinking about the landscape and formulating what might be going on. So the formulation around this was this really complex interplay between physical and psychological well-being, that actually lots of professionals were involved with these women. You know, these women often experience being referred to multiple services to help with the pain, but the overwhelming experience was that actually nothing helped. There was this huge sense of stuckness, which my service and my colleagues, we identified with as well. So I think as a psychologist, it's a really savvy way of, I think, using us. Yeah, we are expensive, but I think this is a really use of our time.
Can I just
Yes,
can I
please,
just sort of say, I agree totally with what Sharon is saying. So when this project was set up last year, you know, the fact that Sharon and Sophie were involved in kind of the planning stages and kind of facilitating sessions, it kind of really helped. And because of the psychological element for the patients, it really helped having Sharon on, because there were occasions when during conversations at the farm or virtually, there are times when patients can get quite distressed and upset about certain things, and it helped having Sharon in, because she was able to kind of intercept and kind of calm the patient down. There were several occasions, you know, a particular patient who's built this rapport and this positive relationship with all of us, and her knowing what Sharon's background is, was able to say to her, look, Sharon, I need to have a conversation with you, not at this moment, outside the session, all kinds of relating to the project and how she's feeling and everything. So I think it really does help having, I mean, certainly for our group, having Sharon at the session. Yes, she's expensive, but you know, you can't put a cost to something like this, you know.
So that's really helpful. You've helped to explain that this is whilst this project is relatively open, as I understand it, it's for a group of people who are making an awful who suffer a lot and present a lot at with their health providers, and possibly this is a way of addressing their health problems in ways that other approaches haven't succeeded. Absolutely. In the past. And I can see that Salima wanted to say something, and I know we're pressed for time. So, last word, Salima. You have to put yourself off silent.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Just very quickly, just want to say about the project where Sharon within the project, the gardening project, there is a session where they make us do the mobility exercise, and that's really good. And then towards the end of the session, we have a relaxing session, a time where we just sort of all just relax and then end the session. So I found that this project was it sort of saw the need to doing something that like gardening to distract our mind. We've got the relaxing that which Sharon usually leads, and then we've got the mobility which the other members sort of make us do all the exercises, so we get all our bones and stretching.
All your movements going. That's all great. All the movements
going. So yeah, I mean, as a service user, I'm really happy, and I'm so glad that a project like this came to us. And it has really made a difference in my life. If I could talk about the other service users.
Well, actually, right, we've run out of time, I'm afraid, yes. Salima. But thank you for your resounding endorsement of the project. Thank you all for your contributions. It's been really interesting to get to know you and to hear what you're doing. And we wish you all the very best for the future. Thank you for bearing with us in this heat and with the technical difficulties now. So if anyone has any further questions, please post them in the chat or visit our website and post them there. And we'd love to answer them. But thank you very much for now, and we'll say goodbye here.